York City buried under 1.5 feet of snow. It's also home to Madison Square Garden, and today the 16th ranked Pittsburgh Panthers come to town looking to continue their surprising season led by sophomore guard Ashton Gibbs. But St. John's has had some recent success against ranked Panther teams at the world's most famous arena. If they want to continue that trend, Pittsburgh native DJ Kennedy will have to do much of the heavy lifting. It's Big East Conference basketball at Madison Square Garden, with the 16th ranked Pittsburgh Panthers against the Johnnies from St. John's. And you see that with Pittsburgh tied with West Virginia right now, the Panthers need to win 2 of their final 3 regular season games to get a double bye in the upcoming Big East tournament. As for St. John's, just looking to build some momentum with the postseason just around the corner. And welcome everybody to Madison Square Garden. Doug Sherman along with former Villanova Wildcat John Celestin. Glad you could join us for this ball game, matching a couple of teams coming off of losses. And for Pittsburgh, in their loss to Notre Dame, the Panthers played perhaps their worst defensive game of the year.
Yeah, Doug, I think you're right. They really didn't play what we call Pittsburgh basketball, which is about rebounding and defensive pressure. Last game, a lackluster performance on a defensive end against Notre Dame. Notre Dame goes 10 for 18 from the three-point line, and that's without Luke Herringody, so you really have to defend them. Now, Jamie Dixon has what they call a boot camp practice, so you know they're going to be ready to play basketball here today.
Meanwhile, St. John's has been playing better lately, but its last time out, a heartbreaking loss on a buzzer beater in overtime to Marquette.
And that's just a tough pill to swallow if you're the St. John's Red Storm. You play a great game against Marquette, and then Jimmy Butler just hits this Hail Mary turnaround shot from the corner. You know, St. John's has really played well as of late. You're not going to see it in the win column. They've really been playing some good defense, but a tough one at the buzzer. You're going to have to see if they can rebound here today.
This is a bounce-back kind of game. Pittsburgh and St. John's will have the starting lineups in the opening tip next from the Garden. Today's Big East game is brought to you by PNC, for the achiever in us all, and by Interstate Batteries, outrageously dependable. It was the 4th snowiest day on record in New York City history. We're warm and dry inside Madison Square Garden for Big East basketball. Number 16 Pittsburgh against the St. John's Red Storm. Doug Sherman along with John Celestin, and we take a look at our Star Watch. Ashton Gibbs, one of the big surprises this year in the Big East Conference.
Yeah, Ashton Gibbs has really stepped to the forefront this year, especially with Dixon being out early in the year and Brown. He can really shoot the basketball, and DJ Kennedy is a do-it-all type of player for St. John's. He leads the team in scoring, assist, and rebounding. He can get it done.
John, let's take a look at our starting lineups brought to you by Interstate Batteries. For Pitt, Wanamaker, kind of a point forward who leads this team in assists per game. Gibbs the top scorer. Dixon, kind of the leader of the club. Robinson and McGee provide the inside presence. And for St. John's, Anthony Mason Jr. making his 10th straight start after missing the start of the season with yet another injury. He is a key for the St. John's club late in the regular season. The Knicks will be here tonight playing the Grizzlies, but we've got college basketball this afternoon. A noon matinee between St. John's and Pittsburgh. Jim Haney, Gary Prager, Mike Stevens are officials. Pittsburgh comes in having won 5 of 6. St. John's having won 3 of 5. And the Johnnies have the ball first in their home white uniforms. Here is Anthony Mason Jr. on the wing.
Really exciting place to play, Madison Square Garden. One of the best places to lace up the sneaks.
There is DJ Kennedy firing away with the first field goal attempt. Ball loose, McGee on the floor, and he's got it for Pittsburgh, and here come the Panthers. Dixon on the fake, knocks down the shot.
And Dixon, more of a lockdown defender for Pittsburgh, gets it going early.
Well, he is considered the best on-ball defender for Pittsburgh, but he averages over 10 points per game on the offensive end. He can give you some of that. Harris Horn crosses over Wanamaker. Here is Mason.
see both teams scrapping early on. Look for a defensive game here. Both teams really good on a defensive end. Pittsburgh leads the league in defensive points per game. They don't allow a lot of points, and St. John's is fourth.
Horn again driving on Wanamaker to the basket this time, and a chance for three.
And Horn can slash. He can get to the rim. He averaged about 14.6 points per game last season. This year not scoring as much, but you see him taking the ball right to the hoop with a little scoop and finish.
Now, a young man from Middletown, Delaware, as you say, averaging only 8 points per game this season after averaging nearly 15 per game a year ago.
And a key for both teams, though, they're going to have to keep guys out of the lane. Neither of these teams are great three-point shooting teams, but they have a lot of guys that can penetrate and get into the teeth of the defense.
Here is Gibbs, sophomore from Scotch Plains, New Jersey. This Pittsburgh team very well represented with metropolitan area players. And coach, by the way, Jamie Dixon, born in New York City, still has relatives in the area. 5 seconds to shoot. Wanamaker in the lane, misses the teardrop. Horn clears the rebound, and here comes St. John's. Kennedy into the lane. Can't get the roll. And the ball goes to St. John's. And there is Jamie Dixon in year number 7 as the head coach at Pitt with a terrific record. Anyway, you break down the numbers for last year's Naismith National Coach of the Year. It's pretty impressive. 1987 graduate of Texas Christian. And he is a member of the Horned Frogs Athletic Hall of Fame. Kennedy misses again. Evans cleans it up.
And Evans is a workhorse out of Philadelphia. He can clean up the garbage. Really has done a good job for St. John's in the hustle department this year.
Pittsburgh down early with the basketball. 2.5 minutes gone here at the Garden. Here Robinson's pass off the foot of Evans out of bounds. Pittsburgh will keep it. The head coach for St. John's, Norm Roberts, in his 6th year. 1987 graduate of Queens College. Longtime assistant at Oral Roberts, Tulsa, Illinois, and Kansas before getting the head coaching job here at St. John's.
And it's not going to always show in the win column, but Coach Roberts' teams always play hard. They're always tough on the defensive end. They get after you, they scrap, and they battle.
With 4 on the shot clock, John, a reach-in foul called against DJ Kennedy, so Pittsburgh will keep possession. Here Robinson guarded closely by Anthony Mason Jr. Gibbs catch and shoot from the head of the key. Evans boxing out McGee. And then the reach-in foul given up by Nasir Robinson, a sophomore from Chester, Pennsylvania.
And we talk about the defensive prowess by St. John's, and they really want to upset the continuity of Pittsburgh. And talking to Coach Roberts, he says, Pitt is a good team if you let them run their stuff. They're really good at moving the basketball. We want to try to get them out of the flow. We want to stay down on shot fakes as well, because they have a lot of guys that'll get you up in the air and take it to the rim and try to finish.
DJ Kennedy, 6'5" junior from Pittsburgh. Mason Jr. draws the foul on McGee, and the senior will go to the line to shoot 2.
And the Red Storm, that's really what they have missed this year, not having Anthony Mason Jr. here for the whole year. I think even they say he's close to 100%, but that rhythm, when you miss that amount of time in basketball, he missed almost 2 years. And it's just tough. Before he went out with the injury, he was a prolific scorer in this conference. Very confident, could shake and bake, knock down the open three-point shot. I'm not sure if he's really ever returned back to that type of form. And it's a shame, because this guy was an all-league type player.
Yeah, well, he missed the start of this season with a hamstring injury. And as you say, John, just the latest in a string of injuries during his college career. He joined the starting lineup, or rejoined the starting lineup this year against your Villanova Wildcats back on January 23rd, and has now started in 10 straight games. And, they rely heavily on him to produce. And it isn't always in the scoring column. He's that well-rounded of a ball player. even though you identify Anthony Mason Jr. as a New Yorker because of his father having played here at the Garden for the Knicks, as the Panthers answer at the other end. Wanamaker with his first field goal. Anthony Mason Jr. grew up in Memphis, Tennessee, and certainly very familiar with New York City growing up. But he has been a cornerstone during the Norm Roberts era. 4 minutes gone here in the first half, and an illegal screen off the ball. Mason Jr. called for the personal.
And I think early on, St. John's, you know, they've done a good job taking Pitt out of their continuity. But Pittsburgh can explode, and Gibbs is a guy you really have to keep an eye on. This guy can shoot the basketball. And as much as we're talking about St. John's on the defensive end, Pittsburgh is phenomenal when it comes to locking you up.
Robinson's turnaround, no. Evans with the rebound. Now we talked about the fact that Pittsburgh defensively laid an egg the last time out against Notre Dame. Nice defensive stand there as Wanamaker. We'll take a break off the charge call. 15:44 remaining first half at Madison Square Garden. Welcome back to Madison Square Garden. St. John's with the early lead, but John Celistan, the Johnnies' leading scorer, DJ Kennedy, has just picked up his second personal foul on that charge.
And that's really going to hurt St. John's, Doug. You know, he's their main guy. He does a little bit of everything with the scoring, the rebounding, the assisting. I think at this point, Anthony Mason Jr. is going to have to step up. And they just inserted Dwight Hardy, and he's a guy who can score as well. So let's see if they can pick up the slack.
Now, as we mentioned, Kennedy is a junior from Pittsburgh out of Shenley High School, where he teamed with, among others, DeJuan Blair, the former Pittsburgh All-American, now an NBA rookie with the San Antonio Spurs, and perhaps pressing just a bit against his hometown team. You grew up in Piscataway, New Jersey. When the Villanova Wildcats went and played at Rutgers, did you feel that?
Let's not talk about that, please. Some of my toughest games, the Piscataway crowd booing me every time I touch the basketball. But I can understand how it is sometimes. You're playing against your hometown team and you want to do well.
Shot clock down to 6. Wanamaker uses the ball screen, picks up his dribble. 1 to shoot. They get it off. The tip is good. Bucket for Dante Taylor.
And that's one thing you have to do when you're playing against Pittsburgh. You have to try to keep them off the glass. They will crash. Luckily, DeJuan Blair is no longer here. One of the best offensive rebounders I've seen in this Big East Conference.
With Dante Taylor, a big recruit for Jamie Dixon, the first McDonald's All-American to sign with Pitt in over 20 years. St. John's misses the bunny. Rebound pulled down by Gilbert Brown, a redshirt junior out of Harrisburg, Pennsylvania. Instant offense off the bench for Pitt. In they go again, and another bucket for Dante Taylor, the freshman from Greenburgh, New York.
And Taylor doesn't score a lot of points for Pittsburgh, but showing you his versatility right there with the nice little jump hook. Pittsburgh will take their time with the basketball and try to pound it inside, take the ball into the jungle, the land of the trees, the taint.
Well, Taylor is one of the native New Yorkers on the Pittsburgh roster, off to a quick start. Evans picks up his dribble, missed another layup. Wanamaker clears.
Not sure how Evans was able to keep his pivot foot down on that last move.
Wanamaker, a couple of ball fakes. Nice job by Paris Horn to stay with him. Talked about that this is expected to be a defensive struggle. Wanamaker fouled. He says it was on the shot. Dante Taylor, the 6'9", 240-pound freshman who actually played his high school ball at National Christian Academy down in Maryland, but is a native New Yorker, and instant offense with back-to-back field goals coming off the bench, John.
Hey, you see the little tap, he's been active, and sometimes it just takes a couple of buckets to really get your confidence boosted. And he could be an added addition here to Pitt. He can score the basketball as well.
No question. There you see the progression of Brad Wanamaker as his minutes have grown this year. He's a big part of the reason why Pittsburgh has been one of the big surprises, not only in the Big East, but in the country.
Out of Roman Catholic High School in Philadelphia. Leads the team in assists. 124 in a year from the 2-guard position. He's a strong guard. Look at those shoulders.
Pittsburgh on an 8-0 run to take this 10-6 lead.
St. John's has to find a way to try to penetrate this tough Pittsburgh zone, and maybe not. Maybe it's knocking down the open jumper. Mr. Horn, known for his athleticism, but shows us the little pull-up.
He's got 4 early points, half of St. John's total. Nearly 7 minutes gone here at Madison Square Garden. Trayvon Woodall killed his dribble and then traveled.
And St. John's putting a lot of pressure on Woodall. They can defend the basketball on the perimeter. Booth is a really good defender on the bounce. As you see Booth, you never want to pick up your dribble. You want to keep that dribble alive until you know where the ball is going to go.
John, that was just their first turnover. Pittsburgh has taken care of the basketball lately. It doesn't necessarily mean a win. They had only 4 turnovers in the loss to Notre Dame, which is incredible.
Well, that's called juking the stats sometimes, because if you don't stop the three-point shot, doesn't matter how many times you don't turn the ball over, 3 points will always kill you.
Yeah, they hit 10 three-pointers, did the Irish on Wednesday to beat Pittsburgh 68-53. And for this Pittsburgh team to lose a game like that in that fashion, it is very atypical, because as we've talked about defensively, they typically don't do that. 10 to shoot. In they go to Taylor. Has his shot blocked. And it'll be Pittsburgh basketball underneath with 6 on the shot clock. Kelly Coker with the shot clock.
You see Coker right here. He says, oh no, not today. And Coker's a big body. A little extracurricular activity going on here. Refs want to clean some things up. This is the Big East Conference.
Physicality is a part of it. You know that. 5 to shoot. Robinson glances up at the shot clock and goes. Knocked away by Booth out of bounds. And it's St. John's basketball.
And as you can tell early on, this is going to be a defensive battle. Neither of these teams are prolific on the offensive end. And I think both teams do a good job grinding games out and winning with their defense.
Hardy feeds the post. Justin Burrell backing down. And he took an extra step and turns it over.
Timeout.
Media timeout here at the Garden. Pittsburgh has surged to the lead by 2. Back at Madison Square Garden, Doug Sherman along with John Celestin, the former Villanova Wildcat, as we watch the Pitt Panthers lead St. John's. And let's take a look at our Big East leaders, brought to you by PNC, leading the way. And today, the top scoring defenses in the conference. Pittsburgh the best at it, except when they play Notre Dame recently. And true to form so far in this one, John, St. John's offensively, thanks to the Pittsburgh defense, not doing too well, only 3 for 11 from the floor. So the Pitt defense, at least early on, seems to be back to form in this ball game.
And it's always about defense, you know. My high school coach, Paul Schob, always says defense makes it happen. And, you know, that's where you win championships. And Pittsburgh, St. John's, 2 of the better defensive teams in the conference. And West Virginia's tough as well, man. They got a lot of long guys, man, who can really play to help and recover with the best of them.
Well, at 10-5 in league play, Pittsburgh is tied for 3rd place with West Virginia. And Pittsburgh's scenario from here on in, if the Panthers win at least 2 of their final 3 regular season games, including here today, they will clinch a double bye in the Big East Championship. Trayvon Woodall knocks down the 3, and Pittsburgh opens up a 5-point lead.
Woodall out of St. Anthony's High School, right across the river, played for legendary coach Bob Hurley.
He is a native New York, grew up in Brooklyn, but now lives out in Jersey. McGee stands his ground defensively. Burrell lost it out of bounds. It'll be St. John's basketball with 16 to shoot.
And Burrell's a guy who has to get going for St. John's. He had a stretch where about 5 games where he was in double figures, and I think he can score the basketball. He's strong, he's athletic, sometimes goes to sleep, but he can hurt you on the offensive end if he gets it going.
Well, his rebounds are up as the season has progressed, and they need that kind of physicality from the 6'8" junior from the Bronx. Shot clock at 2. Burrell stepping out. Woodall clears the miss.
Burrell had to take that shot, but that's not the type of shot, if you're a St. John's fan, you want him looking for.
Catch and shoot from the right side for Dixon. No. Coker with the rebound. St. John's trying to get something going on the offensive end. Down 13-8. The Panthers over the last 6 minutes on the 11-2 run. Coker with a mid-range shot. No. Burrell still working hard. One of the Panthers slow to get up, and now the stoppage of play. Robinson comes up holding his head as he went down hard.
And Robinson shaking it off. He's a tough guy out of Chester, PA. I think he took a shot in the face. You see right here, a little tangled up action right there. Oh, he took a foot to the face.
Midpoint of the first half. Mason uses the ball screen. Pull up from 18. It's short and up and over the top of the backboard. Back to Pitt.
And those are the type of shots that Anthony Mason Jr. would normally make. I think that's just rhythm. That's just him trying to get his legs under him. You miss so much time.
Wanamaker cut off on his drive to the baseline. Back out to Dixon. There's one of the ball fakes you were talking about. 15 to shoot for Pittsburgh. Now Brown wide open and he hits.
And no ball fake right there. That's just take off and let it fly. Brown with the jumper.
Well, rather than settling for the contested shot, they kept running the offense and found themselves an open look.
And you know, in talking to Coach Roberts, that's what he talked about. Pittsburgh is very efficient. They're going to run their offense. They're going to really try to get a good look. And if you're St. John's, you have to try to upset that continuity. I think they did that early on in this ball game, but Pitt starting to figure things out a little bit.
Yeah, Panthers on a 14-2 run, and for Gilbert Brown, it's kind of been feast or famine over the last 8 games. Seems like he either goes for 20 or is held to 2. And that three-pointer, his first points here this afternoon. Redshirt junior out of Harrisburg, Pennsylvania, 6'6", 210, averaging 10.6 points per game. Prep school teammate, among others, of Washington Wizards big man Andre Blatch when they were together at South Kent Prep.
Right now, Pittsburgh has 10 points off the bench already in this ball game, 10 of the 16.
That in and of itself outscores St. John's altogether. Now it's even as Horn gets the finger roll, and one of the few easy looks we've seen for St. John's here in the first 11 minutes.
How about Horn gliding to the rim with the little finger roll action?
He's been the only offensive option so far for the Johnnies, 6 of their 10 points.
See the patience by Pittsburgh. They will move that basketball. They will not take bad shots. They don't settle for a lot of long jumpers.
Now with 5 to shoot, Wanamaker has to fire away, and he's got it.
Right on cue. I talk about not settling for long jumpers, and Wanamaker drills it.
Wanamaker, a 35% shooter from beyond the arc. He's got 7 points now for Pittsburgh. Lead is 8. Burrell working baseline. Quick first step, but he missed. McGee fighting for it, along with Coker, and a held ball. And the possession arrow points the other way to Pittsburgh.
And I think Burrell may have been fouled on that last dunk attempt. Little contact up top.
We saw the quick first step along the baseline, but the inability to finish as he was met at the rim, foul or not. Stoppage in play while the official, Gary Prager, talks to one of our cameramen courtside. 8:10 remaining first half. At the point, Trayvon Woodall, redshirt freshman from Brooklyn. AAU teammate with Ashton Gibbs, his teammate at Pitt. They've been friends since the 7th grade. Lots of connections on this Pitt roster. Catch and shoot. Woodall with good spacing in that half-court set, knocks it down.
And Coach Dixon said Woodall has really given them some good minutes coming off the bench. Sometimes you can move Gibbs to the 2 position when Woodall comes in the game. And
well, he started the first 10 ball games of the season, and since that time, coming off the bench except for 1 start. Malik Booth at the point, spins in the lane, hangs in the air, and Dixon fouled him. Timeout here at the Garden. Trayvon Woodall, the redshirt freshman, with 5 early points. The former star at St. Anthony. A couple of buckets here in the early going for 16th ranked Pittsburgh. Along with John Celestin, Villanova class of '99. This is Doug Sherman, Syracuse class of '88. And you and I, my friend, will not be so friendly this evening when the 2 heavyweights get together.
I'm not sure we should be talking right now, even working a game together. This is going to be a big-time battle tonight. I would be parked on my couch with a couple of friends watching this one. This is the game that everybody waited for in the Big East Conference, and both teams having phenomenal years.
Well, you played a number of games at the Carrier Dome in front of big houses. What's it like to play in that environment?
It's just a big, bright sea of orange, and they're everywhere. And it's a tough place to play, but exciting. I don't want to say this, but I grew up a Syracuse fan, and won't be rooting for the Orange tonight. But the Carrier Dome is an experience. And if you've never seen a game or played in the game there, I suggest you head up to Syracuse.
Well, 9 o'clock tonight. No tickets available, but it is on ESPN with first place in the Big East Conference on the line.
36,000 expected.
St. John's with a pair of misses at the free throw line. Scoring points against this Pittsburgh defense, not an easy task. Got to take advantage of the easy ones from the line.
And Woodall has been aggressive here in the first half. He's usually a guy who just comes out, plays defense, and sets the offense up, but he's knocked down a few jumpers and now taking it to the line.
Well, after having missed 6 of their first 8 shots from the floor, Pittsburgh has made 6 of its last 8 to open up this lead. Woodall makes the first. As you mentioned, out of the terrific program at St. Anthony, playing for Bob Hurley, his team as a senior back in 07-08 went undefeated, 32-0, ranked #1 in the country.
And they were phenomenal. Mike Rosario was also on that team.
Tyshawn Taylor at Kansas, also part of that program. 6 players off of that St. Anthony team went Division I. 7:07 remaining first half here at the Garden. Foul on Pittsburgh. Second against Jermaine Dixon, the senior out of Baltimore. There's Jamie Dixon, grew up in North Hollywood, California, but a New Yorker at heart. His parents from the Bronx, and he was actually born in New York City. Spent a lot of time here in New York as a youngster. The family moved out to the West Coast, and actually he still has his Screen Actors Guild card. He acted as a kid in a lot of commercials. And still to this day has on his resume commercials for Volvo, KFC, Rice Krispies, Mattel. Wow. And as a young adult, he was in a Bud Light commercial, but I'd say he's made the right career choice as a basketball coach in Pittsburgh.
How about Coach Dixon, bi-coastal, New York and Los Angeles. I think I'll take Los Angeles right now with all this snow.
1.5 feet of snow in the last 48 hours here in New York. We've shown you some of the visions out on the streets of Manhattan, although now it's more of a dirty, slushy mess. Good way to ruin a pair of shoes.
Hardy who is a playground legend in New York City. Tremendous shooter, second in scoring on this basketball team, comes off the bench. And that's been the problem for St. John's this year. On the defensive end, they're pretty solid. It's the ability to put the ball in the hole. That's the name of the game in basketball. But they have to find ways to score. With Mason Jr. being out and Paris Horn not scoring as much as he has last year, they've had trouble really putting the points up.
Yeah, they need Hardy. He keyed the big win at Notre Dame back on the 14th with 16 points, including 5 3-pointers. He gets 1 out of 2 from the line. Hardy averaging 10.6 points per game. There you see the Johnnies have gone cold after jumping to a 6-4 lead early. Woodall off the mark. Evans with the rebound. Burst down the lane. Booth. And he will shoot 2.
And you know, that's something I think Booth can do more. You know, I think he has the ability, the jets in transition, to get to the rim and penetrate. I think sometimes he's a little too passive with the basketball. The little guy has to get inside and create. He's strong as well. He can finish.
We just saw that at only 5'9". You think, well, he shouldn't necessarily be able to finish in there, but he's so well built. He can fend off the defender, and he should be able to knock down that layup and have a chance for a 3-point play. As it turns out, now he's missed 3 straight foul shots with a 4th coming. Young man out of Christ the King High School in Queens gets the roll on his 4th free throw of the afternoon. It's a 7-point Pittsburgh lead. Trayvon Woodall guarded by Booth. Ashton Gibbs, who has been quiet here this afternoon, reaching foul against Booth.
And you see Coach Roberts on the sideline very upset because he talked about staying down on the shot fakes. And a shot fake right there by Woodall getting into the paint. Now, I understand why they closed out on Woodall so hard. He's knocked down a couple of jumpers, but you got to stay down on the Pitt guards because they really want to get inside and finish.
Offensive foul. Gibbs doesn't like the call, but he picks up the personal. Second foul on the 6'2" sophomore from Scotch Plains, New Jersey, who is still scoreless here this afternoon.
And in that instance, Hardy doing a good job staying down and moving his feet. And you have to really be focused to stay down on a guy like Ashton Gibbs, who can knock down the jumper with the best of them. And he's going to have to take a seat.
And so Gibbs replaced in the lineup by Chase Adams, a senior from Baltimore, Maryland, who transferred to Pittsburgh for his final year of eligibility after having played at Centenary. Didn't have to sit out the year on the transfer because Centenary is a Division II school. Hardy from long range, way off the mark. Brownlee after the rebound. And apparently Taylor was the last to touch, so the Johnnies will keep it.
Not a great shot off the pick and roll by Hardy, but very tough to really get inside against the Panthers. They can force you into those tough, long jumpers.
Booth to trigger the inbound. Finds Hardy in the corner. Hardy goes away from the screen from Brownlee. Met at the rim. And it's Pittsburgh basketball. Well, there's Dante Taylor for you, the 6'9" McDonald's All-American from just north of New York City in Greenburgh. Nice job defending the goal. And
I think that was a good no call. I think Taylor goes straight up on that defensive possession right there, and not a foul. The defender has the ability to jump straight up in the air.
Here's New York City point guards going at it, Woodall and Booth. Here's that matchup again. 7 seconds on the shot clock. Woodall crosses over Booth, drops it off, and the layup is good by Robinson.
And Woodall doing a good job here in his extended minutes. Little crossover action with the dish. He's been solid in this ball game. Only a freshman.
But this is second year with the Panthers, redshirted after 10 games for medical reasons last year.
And watch Woodall right here, putting the defender on skates with the little crossover, goes by Booth. And a little dish to Robinson.
And that's the first bucket for Nasir Robinson off the nice feed from Woodall, who has provided a good spark off the bench so far this afternoon for Jamie Dixon's 16th ranked Panthers.
One thing about guys out of St. Anthony High School in Jersey City, they can get to the rim, they can penetrate with the best of them.
Here's Adams stepping out, and he buries the three. This is the largest lead of the afternoon for Pittsburgh.
And Adams comes off the bench and knocks down the trifecta. St. John's has to find a way, and maybe it's Burrell to put the ball in the hole. And I think, you know, Burrell can knock down that corner jump shot. He has to be more aggressive. Sometimes I think he just loafs out there, but he has the ability and the tools. Just sometimes doesn't open the toolbox.
Well, he had a good game against Pittsburgh back in January with 14 points, and a game that the Panthers needed a 9-1 run late in order to hold off St. John's. As you say, John, Burrell certainly could be a key for the Johnnies. Woodall has to take the deep three. Robinson misses the putback, and then the over-the-back foul against Taylor. That'll take us to our next media timeout here at Madison Square Garden. St. John's down by 10. St. John's shooting just 26% from the floor so far here this afternoon, down by 10. And all season long, Champion Apparel will be showcasing the tradition and history of the Big East Conference. And today, let's take a look at the 1985 St. John's Redmen, who went 31-4, 15-1 in the conference, won the regular season Big East title, made it to the Final Four in what was an 3 out of 4 Final Four. Your alma mater was there, had a big win against Georgetown in the championship. Champion, it's how you play. And that 1985 season really still the benchmark for Big East seasons, with St. John's, Villanova, and Georgetown making it to that Final Four.
And St. John's with a tremendous team that year. Chris Mullen, Walter Berry, a lot of big-time players. And for Villanova, obviously that year will be etched in the memories of many alumni forever.
Yeah, and Bill Wennington, another one of the Red Stormer, went on to the NBA off of that great Lou Carnesecca team. By the way, Louie not here at the Garden today. Why would you go out with all this snow? Just stay home and watch it on television.
That's right.
Although Coach does make it to a number of St. John's home games still these days. And actually, this is the last regular season home game for St. John's. They go on the road to Syracuse and DePaul, their last 2 regular season games this coming week, before they'll come back for the Big East Championship here at the Garden.
And the Big East Championship here, always a very exciting time. I do it, the games on the radio, and just great to be there. You see some of the big-time players over the year. Walter Berry, a guy who I played against a lot in pickup games. Mark Jackson, Malik Sealy, Ron Artest, Eric Barkley, guys who I battled with in my years in the Big East Conference. And obviously Chris Mullen, one of the best, if not the best.
And John, that was a big part of the formula for Coach Carnesecca, to keep New York players home and starring at St. John's, not going to Pittsburgh, not going up to Syracuse, not going to Villanova. But that trend has changed, and Norm Roberts has had trouble keeping the best New York City talent here at the Garden.
Yeah, a lot of the Big East schools have swooped in and kind of fed off the talent here in New York and New Jersey. And if you're going to compete in this Big East Conference, you have to get some of the better players in this area, if not New York, across the river in New Jersey, which I think is some of the best basketball in the country.
Big-time move by Anthony Mason Jr. on the turnaround, back to a 9-point ball game. Under 3 minutes remaining first half. First field goal for the 6'7" senior from Memphis, Tennessee. Robinson feeds the post. McGee goes to his right hand, back to the left shoulder, and he bounces it in.
And McGee showing you he can use his pivot foot. Not sure how he found some room right there to finish that, but giving Pittsburgh an inside presence.
First 2 points this afternoon from the junior out of Anderson, Indiana. Now defending Burrell, who sends it back out to the perimeter, and back they go inside to Burrell. Banging with McGee, who stood his ground, and again the Pittsburgh defense making it tough on St. John's. Trayvon Woodall holds at his hip. 15 seconds on the shot clock for Pittsburgh.
You see how deliberate Pittsburgh can be on the offensive end. They never rush. They get good looks.
Adams off the mark. Burrell clears, and St. John's back the other way. 90 seconds remaining in the half.
Well, St. John's has to find somebody who can create his own shot like that right there by Mr. Horn. Crossover action. Man.
Right on cue. Gets himself a little space now with 8 points.
This is New York City, the land of the shake and bake. But I think they have to create their own shot. If you're going to beat Pittsburgh, you have to get by your guy on the defensive end. You have to create, a 2-on-1 when you get inside, bring 2 guys and dish.
This is a St. John's team that just does not shoot the basketball very well. Foul against the Johnnies on the year.
And watch this. I mean, Horn, not from New York City or Rucker Park, but showing us they can do it in Delaware as well. Watch him here, set him up. Boom! Little crossover, stop and pop.
Horn now 4 for 4 from the floor, so you take him out of the equation. St. John's really hasn't gotten anything from anybody else. He's been the only efficient offensive option.
Again, Horn averaged close to 15 points per ball game last year, so he has the ability to put the ball in the hole.
Coming up at halftime here in Madison Square Garden, we'll have the Big East Wire talk about some of the bubble teams in the conference. Also Big East scores and standings in our first half highlights and statistics, as 16th ranked Pittsburgh looks to improve to 11-5 in league play and hold on to at least a share of third place in the Big East standings. Knocked out of bounds. Gilbert Brown the last to touch. So with 16 on the shot clock, St. John's will have it underneath its own basket.
And it's just tough for the Red Storm not having a guy that can really get inside consistently. Even in the post, not having somebody, a go-to guy. And that guy used to be Mason, but obviously hasn't found the rhythm yet.
Here's Mason on the right wing. Dumps it off, and the layup by Booth.
And you see that right there, that was vintage Mason. Those are the type of plays that he made last year. The timeout, not making them as frequently, but that was a heck of a pass.
Timeout called by Jamie Dixon to talk things over, but yeah, you don't have to score if you're Anthony Mason Jr. to make a difference for St. John's.
And this is pretty right here. I mean, he comes in a little no-look dish inside. He has the ability, has the talent. It's just the layoff. Guys that sit out long periods of time, very hard to come back. Tracy McGrady came back and had a big game in the Garden his first night as a New York Knick. But most guys don't just show back up and return to form right away.
Well, as you know, Anthony Mason Sr. started for the Knicks back in the early 90s. And he was a high school teammate of Norm Roberts. And that was one of the connections for Anthony Mason Jr. to come to St. John's. But he lost last season to foot surgery, making Norm Roberts' job that much more difficult. And then the hamstring trouble to begin this season. And as you talk about, John, if you're not playing on a consistent basis, it is not easy to play at your best. Pittsburgh out of the timeout turns it over and gives St. John's the basketball with plenty of time to get off a good shot.
And, a bucket here could really give St. John's some momentum going into the locker room. 9 seconds, 9.8 seconds, a lot of time.
Five seconds to go. Mason Jr. from deep, no. Hardy after the rebound puts it up at the buzzer. It's no good, and St. John's will head to the locker room down 8 at the half.
And you couldn't ask for two better looks than what St. John's got right there. But obviously Pittsburgh in this first half has shown you what they can do on the defensive end.
Panthers on the offensive end taking care of the basketball and leading by 8. Back after this. At the intermission, St. John's down 8 to number 16 Pittsburgh here at Madison Square Garden. And welcome back, everybody. Doug Sherman along with former Villanova Wildcat John Celestin. And well, when you think about the fact that DJ Kennedy played just a couple of minutes in that first half before picking up his second foul, and at the point where he went out, John, St. John's led by 6-4. They led by 2. So when you take that into consideration, you get him back for the start of the second half. Perhaps they can get some offense going. Yeah,
you got to hope that he can come in and kind of explode in this second half, because St. John's has really struggled on the offensive end. Without Kennedy, somebody has to step up and be that guy. Pittsburgh has 8 different players having scored. Meanwhile, for St. John's, it's been pretty much all Paris Horn, 4 for 4 from the floor for 8 points. Yeah, Paris Horn was explosive in the first half. He can slash and he can get to the rim. So he really picked up the slack without Kennedy out there on the court. And then on the other side, you know, Pittsburgh has really spread the wealth around. Wanamaker has scored, and they've had a couple of other guys step up. You know, Woodall has been impressive. He usually doesn't get a whole lot of minutes, but he's knocked down some jumpers and orchestrated the offense. St. John's struggling from the floor, although they made a couple of shots late to get that number up. Still, they've got to get it up even more if they're going to compete for a victory here this afternoon. We'll take a break and come back with the second half. 16th ranked Pittsburgh looking for win number 22 on the year. Pittsburgh led by as many as 12 in the first half, up 8 as we get set for the start of the second half. And here is why this ball game is so important for Pittsburgh. And when you see all the teams really jockeying for position to get that, you know, to either finish in 3rd or 4th place, and like we spoke about earlier, Doug, it's very important to get that bye in the Big East tournament. But you see some of these teams, I mean, you look at Pitt, they have St. John's, Providence, Rutgers. You know, that's a soft schedule. West Virginia, a little tougher, Cincy, Georgetown, at Nova. But look at Louisville, at UConn, at Marquette. And then you have the Cuse. That is, you know, that could bury them in this race. It's going to be tough down the stretch for a couple of teams. And again, if you finish in the top 4 in the regular season standings, you receive a double bye in the Big East Championship, which will be here at Madison Square Garden about a week and a half from now. And you really don't want to be playing in a week and a half, because that means you're playing Tuesday and Wednesday. You'd much rather not have to play your first game until Thursday. So that's what Pittsburgh is playing for, both here and in their final 2 regular season games. Anthony Mason Jr. misfires as we begin the second half. And if I'm a St. John's fan, I like seeing Mason Jr. be aggressive right there. He has to step up. You know, Kennedy and Mason Jr. have to carry this team if they're going to, you know, be in this ball game come crunch time. Kennedy gets his first bucket here this afternoon. Again, he picked up 2 quick fouls and wound up playing only 4 minutes in the first half, missed all 3 of his shots from the floor. With his bucket, he draws St. John's back within 6. Wanamaker, Dixon, Robinson, McGee, and here's Gibbs coming to the basketball. As it's stripped away by Booth off the foot of Gibbs, back over to the Johnnies. And you can see the frustration in Ashton Gibbs' face. And, you know, he has sat most of the first half, and Booth is just a tremendous on-ball defender. He can really gnaw at you and bother you like a gnat, just get on your nerves. And, you know, he's done a good job guarding some of the better point guards in this conference. Yeah, a little better energy for St. John's here in the first minute of the second half. Evans, good position inside, can't get the roll though. And Evans has to finish that one. He has deep position in the paint. Point blank layup. Robinson, nice reverse. And a pretty move by Robinson. Out of Chester, PA, played at American Christian Academy before transferring back to Chester. Played with Tyreek Evans, who is now starring for the Sacramento Kings for a few years.
Kennedy catch and shoot for 2.
Kennedy trying to heat it up a little bit inside the Garden.
He didn't like that goose egg next to his name coming out of halftime. 4 quick points in the first 2 minutes here in the second half.
Nice.
Robinson with another layup.
And Wanamaker made that one happen with the nice little jump pass. Leads this team in assists from the shooting guard position.
He is 9th in the Big East Conference at 4.4 assists per game. And again, not a point guard. To be in that kind of company is pretty good. Harris Horn is still perfect. 5 for 5 from the floor.
And Horn is confident. You can tell he has a little bop in his step. Chest is sticking out. Head is shaking.
Again, he was St. John's top scorer a year ago, averaging over 16 points per game in conference play. This year averaging half of that. But he's got 11 to lead St. John's here this afternoon. Mason Jr. kicked the pass. Pittsburgh keeps possession.
You see right here the nice little reverse by Robinson. And Harris Horn, you know, he's been tough for St. John's here in this ball game. Just wonder why he hasn't scored at the same clip as he did last year.
McGee carving out space but misses the running hook. Well, John, your stats during your 4 years at Villanova grew. You got better as you went along. Kennedy off the mark. But Horn is somebody who he has regressed statistically over the years. Hard foul given up by Booth. And free throws upcoming for Robinson. And it is a flagrant foul called against the St. John's point guard.
And I'm not sure I agree with a flagrant foul right there. Booth, you know, I can see the replay, but he's hustling to get back in this play and try to stop. He goes up for the block here. I don't see where there's an intentional foul. No intent to hurt. He goes up for the block here. So he's going, and, well, he grabs the arm. But how do you stop from pulling a guy down if you're falling down? I'm not sure if that's enough to be a flagrant. But, you know, back to your point, Doug, you know, my stats increased in my 4 years, but sometimes situations, you know, who you're playing with, who injuries, you know, call for different things from different players in their careers. And, you know, last year, Horn had to really step up with Mason Jr. being out. This year, not giving that same offensive production, but I think he could give that type of production, Mr. Horn.
Well, he's giving it to them this afternoon with 11 points to lead all scorers. Meanwhile, Nasir Robinson has picked it up for Pittsburgh here in the second half, having scored all 6 of the Panthers' points. Pitt leads by 7. McGee just ran over Booth and then winds up getting the offensive rebound. Missed on the easy putback. Here come the Johnnies. Booth lost the dribble and gets it back. E.J. Kennedy posting up, and he will go to the line to shoot 2.
And, you know, I wouldn't call St. John's a prolific fast break team, but I think they may want to push the pace a little more because I don't think they can really score in the half court against the Pittsburgh defense. I think they may be better off trying to push the basketball, score quickly before Pitt sets up that half-court defense because they're just tough in the man-to-man.
John, that foul on Ashton Gibbs, and that's his 3rd. And again, for Pittsburgh, he leads the way with 16 points per game. He's got none so far here this afternoon.
If you're a St. John's fan, I'm not sure if that's good for you. You know, Woodall is checking in, and he's been more effective than Gibbs in this ball game. I think Gibbs is in a little bit of a funk today.
Young man from nearby East Orange, New Jersey. Actually from Scotch Plains, who played his high school ball in East Orange and Seton Hall Prep. And we talked in the first half about when you come back and play in your hometown or play against your hometown team. Sometimes it might have an effect on you. And Gibbs, as you see, scoreless still and now with 3 fouls.
Well, I'm not sure if it's really Gibbs just not playing well, if it's just the constant in and out with the foul trouble. You know, Seton Hall Prep has produced a lot of big-time players over the years. Brandon Knight, who's on the bench as an assistant coach. Brevin Knight, who played in the NBA for a lot of years and started at Stanford.
Three-point opportunity for Robinson.
Nasir Robinson, his second up and under the basket move in his second half. He showing us a little energy. Woodall again makes the nice little bounce pass. Wanamaker gives it up as well, and Robinson with the little jump stop, the finish.
And we saw very well illustrated, John, what you talked about, the ball fake.
Got to try to stay down against Pittsburgh. They practice those shot fakes and getting guys in the air.
Here's Kennedy. Puts it on the deck. Strong move, no. The tip by Evans, no. Anthony Mason Jr. pulls it down. Horn for three. First time he's missed so far this afternoon, but another offensive rebound for Kennedy and the foul against the Panthers. Pittsburgh's lead is 9 as we head to break. Where the Pitt Panthers enjoy a 9-point lead. They call this a home away from home for Pitt. 23-10 over the years here at the Garden. And there's a man, Sam Young, who knows all about playing here at the Garden. Matter of fact, former Pitt Panther in town with the Memphis Grizzlies, who will play the Knicks tonight here on this same floor.
One of the most athletic guys I've seen in the Big East Conference. And when you talk about shot fakes, Sam Young had the most unorthodox shot fake, but very effective. He was a great player for Pitt in his 4 years.
Now this is a Pittsburgh team that a year ago made it all the way to the regional finals before losing to your Villanova Wildcats. Won 31 ball games last year, and not much was expected of them this season. Kennedy continues to stay hot for St. John's.
And Kennedy starting to connect. We spoke about, Doug, that he has to have an explosive second half for St. John's to hang around, and he is lighting up the dynamite.
Well, all 9 of his points have come here in the early part of the second half, and I don't know, John, how you feel about plus minus, but with Kennedy on the floor here today, St. John's is plus 5. So when they've got their lead scorer, 6'5" junior from Pittsburgh, on the floor doing his thing as he has been doing here, St. John's is a much different team. He's stuck now, gets it back out to Malik Booth.
And here St. John's are going to slow it down again, but again, very difficult in the half court against Pitt. I think early in transition, scoring on the secondary break, and that's the best way to try to score against the Panthers.
Here's Booth looking for help, 5 to shoot. Kennedy is fouled at the head of the key with 2 on the shot clock. Well, Kennedy's got a big size advantage over Trayvon Woodall, who is 5'11", 190, so you figure Kennedy at 6'5", 215 is going to be able to get off his shot when he wants to.
Yeah, he has the size and the ability to rise up, and you see Gibbs checking back in the ball game. Jamie Dixon sensing some urgency right now to try to put St. John's away.
Here is Kennedy posting up. Now backing out, guarded by Gilbert Brown, a little more his size. Brown is 6'6". Nice speed. Evans, though, had the shot blocked by Taylor. We have seen a lot of good things out of the young freshman from nearby Greenburgh, New York, here this afternoon for the Panthers.
You talk about wiping a shot up against the window.
very young Pittsburgh team, the least experienced team in the Big East Conference this year, but there is some of that talented youth on display again. The flush by Taylor, who's now got 6 points.
Taylor comes down on the other end and gets the dunk as well, but
timeout here at Madison Square Garden. Dante Taylor, the 6'9" freshman out of National Christian Academy, playing big at both ends as the Panthers look for their 11th conference win of the Big East season. Welcome back to Madison Square Garden. Doug Sherman along with former Villanova Wildcat John Celestin. Today's Big East Coaches Spotlight is brought to you by Oppenheimer Funds. Let's take a closer look at Coach Jamie Dixon of Pittsburgh, and the statistics, no matter how you slice them, John, are excellent.
Yeah, he has been phenomenal in his tenure at Pittsburgh. Just has done a great job, and he hasn't always had, you know, All-Americans or big-time recruits. He just coaches the right way. And you look at this Pittsburgh team this year, nobody had them picked to do anything in this conference. They were picked 9th by the Big East coaches poll. And they've surprised some people this year.
Count the basket for Hardy on the goaltend.
See right here, Hardy. Yeah, obviously that one is that is way after the ball hits the backboard, rim, and whatever else it hit.
Brown, count the basket in one. Not exactly sure that's how he meant to put it up, but when it goes through the hole, you will take it.
And St. John's has to do a better job here on the hedge, on the pick and roll. And you see Brown gets the switch and gets Burrell on him. And once he sees the big guy on him, he takes him right to the rim. Takes that one right down Broadway and finishes.
There's Gilbert Brown, a 6'6" redshirt junior from Harrisburg, Pennsylvania. And he's got the three-point play. 7 now for Brown. And the Pittsburgh lead back to 9. St. John's had cut it to 5 early here in the second half. Brownlee left alone, decides to fire away. Not the shot you're looking for in that situation.
Well, Brownlee can hit that, but you have to just take it confidently. I don't think he really wanted to shoot that ball from the get-go.
Well, his minutes have been way down since mid-season, shooting only 21% from beyond the arc. And with the shot clock still not a factor, not the shot you want. Third personal foul on DJ Kennedy, and again, he picked up 2 fouls early in the ball game and was scoreless in that first half as Norm Roberts put him on the bench. And since coming into the second half, he has scored 8 points to help St. John's hang close.
And Kennedy has to be careful not to pick up that 4th foul, which will cause him to be less aggressive for the rest of the ball game. And if you're Pittsburgh, you want to take the ball at Kennedy.
If you're Norm Roberts, you really don't have any good options in terms of scoring punch in place of him. So you need to leave him on the floor with 12 minutes left in regulation. 10 to shoot. Here's Gibbs, still looking for his first points. Robinson on the offensive glass.
And Robinson has been a straight man in this second half. He has been active. He has been a bully. And he finishes that putback right there.
13 points now for Robinson. Most of that damage coming here in the second half. Hardy. Tough shot on the reverse. Hit the bottom of the backboard. Brown from the left wing. No. Again, Pittsburgh on the offensive glass. And Robinson is called for the foul. The energy of Nasir Robinson, sophomore from Chester, Pennsylvania, helping Pittsburgh to a 47-36 lead. Back at Madison Square Garden, where here in the second half it has been the Nasir Robinson show for Pittsburgh, as he is putting on quite a show on Broadway. 11 of his 13 points coming here in the second half.
And he's 4 for 4 here in the second half. He has just had a lot of energy. You know, he's more of a cleanup type of guy, but his aggression has really helped him in this second half. He is just hurting St. John's. He is all over the court. He's reversing it. He's getting putbacks. He is just knocking guys around in the paint. You see 13.6 rebounds. He's been a horse here in this second half.
And that is double his season average for points, which at 6.3 doesn't make you think offensive weapon, but his career high came against Louisville last month when he went for 26. So he's got it in him to put up points in a hurry.
I'm sure he'll be back in the ball game ASAP for Coach Dixon, the way he's presenting himself in this ball game.
Now this is a Pittsburgh team that has gone to 8 straight NCAA tournaments and well on their way to number 9 in a row, and that's the longest current streak of any school in the Big East. And as we've talked about, John, Jamie Dixon's club was not expected to make it 9 in a row this year, but they are the only team in the country to have 3 wins this season over top 5 teams. At the time, Syracuse ranked number 5, West Virginia ranked number 5, and Villanova ranked number 3. That's getting it done and putting some big stars on your resume.
Oh yes, they get it done. They really play Pittsburgh basketball, which is blue collar, just like the city of Pittsburgh. In your face defense, they work, and they've been pretty successful over the past 9 or 10 years.
Now he took over for his former head coach Ben Howland when Ben left for UCLA and hasn't just sustained it, he has grown it.
Oh yeah, and there are only 3 other programs in the nation, Gonzaga, Arizona, and Kansas, who have won 20 games, 10 games in their league, and advanced to the tournament in each of the last 9 years, and they just get it done.
And there you see the former TCU Horned Frog with the Pitt Panthers. And again, he's kind of bi-coastal. And it's tough when you go from the West Coast to the East Coast when you're a coach. If you've got your recruiting base on one side of the country, it's not that easy to just switch over. But having been the associate coach at Pitt for a number of years under Coach Howland, and then also being a New Yorker in terms of where he was born and where his family's from, he's done a nice job coming into the Big East and making a big difference.
Successful coaches find a way to get the job done. And I think Coach Dixon has gone beyond the call of duty and turned Pittsburgh into a basketball powerhouse. Not just in the Big East, but in the country.
Well, and he has a special relationship with this building. His sister, the late Maggie Dixon, who used to be the head coach at Army before passing away in 2006, is very much on the mind of Jamie Dixon, who is part of the Maggie Dixon Foundation and hosts the Maggie Dixon Classic here at the Garden. They have played it here, and he really appreciates coming to Gotham and playing here at Madison Square Garden.
And it's a beautiful tournament in honor of his late sister. I came and watched Rutgers women play here at the Garden during the Maggie Dixon Classic. Just a great cause, and it's just great that he is a part of that in his sister's name.
And while I'd say that most Division I college basketball coaches around the country are very involved in different charities, Coaches versus Cancer being one that many of them do a marvelous job on, as Gibbs finally gets himself on the board, Dixon does above and beyond the call. Back to a 10-point lead for 16th ranked Pittsburgh. Horn feeds the post. Burrell backing down. This time he's able to finish.
And Burrell can do more of that. That's the type of play you want to see out of Justin Burrell. He has a strong upper body. He can be a bruiser in the paint. I think he has to be more aggressive with the basketball. He was on the all-freshman team in the Big East as a rookie.
Yeah, he was a big recruit. Grew up in upstate in Middletown, and then as a teenager, family moved to the Bronx. And when Norm Roberts kept him home, that was perceived as a real big get, a nice get. We talked about trying to keep the New York City kids at St. John's. He was one of the good ones a couple of years ago. McGee, nice job to keep the possession alive. Brown hits the open three.
And Brown has knocked down another one. Not the prettiest form on Brown's jump shot, but doesn't matter. It's about the results. and it's splashing.
Brown into double figures now.
This is when Burrell has to be aggressive right here. He has to look for a shot.
Good defense again by Pittsburgh. 8.5 remaining in regulation. Hardy misses another tough shot at the basket, and the foul call. Well, it's hard to believe that the college lacrosse season has started. Don't miss the inaugural ESPNU Warrior Classic on Saturday, April 24th at Rentschler Field in East Hartford, Connecticut. Denver will take on Fairfield at 11 a.m., followed by UMass against Georgetown. Visit ESPNUWarriorClassic.com for more details. Although these days here in the metropolitan area, any lacrosse program going to have to get out the shovels if they want to play. Lots of snow. The 4th snowiest day in New York City history, with 1.5 feet snow in Manhattan, and you just don't see that at sea level very often. But the sanitation workers here in Manhattan have had their hands full over the last couple of days trying to clear out the snow.
And we have been walloped with many snowstorms in this area, and I don't want to see another shovel or another driveway again.
The officials are taking a look at the replay to see who will be shooting after this foul.
I think the jostling for position here is Burrell and looks like Brown inside. Not sure who the. Looks like it would have to be on Brown.
Gary Prager was the official over at the monitor. Mike Stevens came over to tell us that they wanted to make sure they had the right shooter, and so they say it's Justin Burrell who is being sent to the line, an 80% foul shooter for St. John's. Now Burrell missed 5 games with a high ankle sprain back in December. Suffered the injury against Duke. Gets the front end of the 1-and-1 and will get the bonus. And as you mentioned, he was on the all-rookie team back in 08. Had a big game at Pittsburgh last month when he scored 14 points in a losing effort. But he can be a key component for the Johnnies.
He struggled over the last 3 ball games, but he had a stretch of 5 games where he was in double figures in each of those ball games. And you just like to see him really be more aggressive with the basketball to give St. John's another guy that's dangerous on the offensive end.
Sean Evans is checked into the ball game. So Evans at 6'8", 255, and Burrell 6'8", 235. Twin Towers inside for St. John's. Brown off the fake, strong move, and the finish.
And right there again, you see the ball fake by Brown, which has been set up by his ability to knock down a 3-point shot in this ball game. Very athletic, and he takes it to the rim.
Now this is a different Pittsburgh team with Gilbert Brown in the lineup. He missed the first 11 games of the season due to an academic suspension, and Pittsburgh certainly enjoys having him as instant offense coming off the bench. Nice runner by Hardy, that time a little bit more under control.
Hardy going left. I think Coach Dixon called timeout to avoid the 5-second call on the inbound.
30-second timeout called by the 7th-year head coach of Pittsburgh. Now Gilbert Brown, 6'6", redshirt junior from Harrisburg, PA.
And that's great ball movement by Pittsburgh right there. And then Brown, little shot fake, which Coach Norm Roberts talked about. This guy staying down, and Pittsburgh's not a great shooting team, even though they've knocked down a couple of jumpers today. So you really want to close out with choppy feet and corral your guy and keep him out of the paint. Easier said than done.
Well, Pittsburgh's gotten tremendous balance all game long, John. Their bench is nearly outscoring their starters. 27 points for the reserves, including 12 by Brown. 28 points for the Pittsburgh starters. Kind of balance that not many teams in the Big East can rely on, but Pittsburgh certainly can. There are the numbers for Jamie Dixon and the Pitt Panthers at Madison Square Garden. Although they've lost their last two, including earlier this season in the Jimmy V Classic to Indiana back in the early part of the year, but that game they didn't have Gilbert Brown. So I mean, that's a big difference when you're taking into account their resume. You've got to factor in, as far as I'm concerned, when you lose ball games if you're missing some of your better players. Timeout. We'll take a break here at the Garden. 55-46 Pitt. Back in Madison Square Garden, Pittsburgh eyeing a win that would get the Panthers within one more win of earning a double bye for the Big East Championship. Meanwhile, how about that score? Georgetown in the race to try and get a double bye in the Big East Championship, not getting it done at home against Notre Dame. And for the Irish, this could be a huge win for their NCAA tournament resume, John.
And I think Georgetown has been inconsistent this year. They lose games they aren't supposed to lose. You see Notre Dame right here. They get another win. Now that's West Virginia, Pitt. They've also beaten Georgetown if they win today, and they have a game coming up against UConn. So they can position themselves to make a run and to really get back in the tournament. I had them really on the bubble, not making it right now, but this is another huge win for them.
St. John's gets an open look out of the timeout, and Dwight Hardy buries it.
And Hardy can shoot the ball, gets that one to rattle down. And you see St. John's picking up full court, trying to put some pressure on Pittsburgh.
Well, you know, when you talk about offensive options for St. John's, after Horn and Kennedy, really Hardy's the guy you've got to look for. Burrell called for the foul, and McGee will go to the line.
No backside help right there. Pitt doing a good job clearing everybody out to lob it into McGee. You see right here, there's nobody. They clear it out. Everybody gets out of there. Little lob, and Burrell's caught fronting.
McGee gets the first. Trayvon Woodall back in for Pittsburgh. Dixon, who has had a quiet afternoon, takes a seat. Senior out of Baltimore, averaging over 10 points per game. He has just 2 so far here today. He is one of the team leaders for this 16th ranked Pittsburgh team. McGee with a couple of foul shots. The lead back to 9, 57-48. Along with John Celestin, the former Villanova Wildcat, this is Doug Sherman. At Madison Square Garden, St. John's playing its final home game of the regular season. Hardy again trying to make things happen, but more often than not here in the second half, he has run into a stern Pittsburgh defense. Gibbs in the lane, creates some space, but has it rim out. Burrell, nice outlet up to Kennedy.
And this is when St. John's has to score right here. In transition, if they can get stops and push the basketball, when they don't have to set up against Pittsburgh's tough man-to-man half-court defense.
Third foul on Woodall. And so Kennedy, who is playing with 3 fouls and could have picked up his 4th, instead will go to the line to shoot a 1-and-1.
You see a little transition. Guys are backpedaling, and you see a little dish inside.
Kennedy will get the bonus. He's a 76% foul shooter. All 9 of his points so far coming in the second half. Here this afternoon, he picked up 2 early fouls and really hamstrung St. John's with him sitting the 16 minutes throughout the first half. That was when Pittsburgh opened up its lead, and the Panthers led by 8 at halftime, and St. John's has not been able to cut it any closer than 5 here in the second half. Long rebound deflected into the backcourt. Hardy's got it, and a fresh shot clock for St. John's. St. John's has won 3 of its last 5 ball games, although they lost a heartbreaker the last time out at Carnesecca Arena on a buzzer beater in overtime to Marquette, trying to use this game as a bounce back with the Big East Championship just around the corner. Foul on the drive along the baseline against Pittsburgh, and against McGee it's his 2nd.
And again, Booth being aggressive off the dribble. He's quick, has the strength.
And so now Malik Booth at the line. 70% of the year coming in, but really struggling here this afternoon. He missed his first 3 and now has missed 4 out of 5, but he scrambles to get his own miss. Pittsburgh coach Jamie Dixon beside himself, allowing extra possessions for St. John's. That time Robinson clears the defensive glass. 5.5 minutes remaining in regulation. St. John's last led at 6-4 early. Wanamaker short on the 3. McGee tracks it down, back out to Woodall, and Pittsburgh will pull it out.
And Pittsburgh lucky on that possession. Not the shot you want to take with a lead that Wanamaker just took.
Well, the first time these two teams met at the Peterson Event Center, as Gibbs fires away and hits. That's a 2. Pittsburgh closed strong on a 9-1 run to win that ball game, which was tighter than this one. Gibbs and the Panthers trying to close strong here again today.
And I think Pitt has done an excellent job keeping the Red Storm at arm's length. Just won't let them close the gap. You see right here, a little curl action in Gibbs. If you give him that type of room, you might as well run down the other way, because that one's going to go through.
Well, it's been a quiet afternoon for Gibbs. Just 5 points. In their previous game here at the Garden this season, he had his career-high 25 points in the loss to Indiana back on December 8th in the Jimmy V Classic. Here are the Big East standings, top 8, and the top 4 will get a double bye in the Big East Conference Championship here at the Garden. In Pittsburgh and West Virginia tied for 3rd place right now, and Pitt wants to take care of business. In terms of tiebreakers, those two teams split their regular season meeting, so Pitt wants to take care of business, not leave it to tiebreakers, and if they get this win and one more in this final week of the regular season, they will assure themselves of a double bye in the Big East tournament. Meanwhile, St. John's at 5-10 is trying to get things going with the tournament just around the corner. Jamie Dixon was a college basketball star at Texas Christian All-Southwest Conference. Played some professional basketball in the CBA, as you did. He played for La Crosse, Wisconsin. Where did you play your CBA ball, John?
Well, I played in the IBL. I played a little basketball for the Albuquerque. I can't even remember the mascots. I was there for 2 weeks, and I said, hey, I got to go over to Europe, and played some ball over in Germany, Italy, France. I was all over the place, but when you're chasing that dream, just trying to get back in the NBA, you will play basketball wherever they send you.
Yeah, Jamie Dixon played for the La Crosse Panthers before he went abroad like you did over to Holland. Ball loose on the floor. McGee, the only Panther fighting against a couple of the big boys for St. John's. And the possession arrow in favor of Pittsburgh, so nice job by McGee. Even though it looked like Evans came up with the basketball, it's Panthers possession. 4:41 remaining in regulation.
Right now, if you're Pittsburgh, you just want to have good possessions, eat up some time off the clock, be very deliberate. For St. John's, you have to try to cause some turnovers and try to score quickly. Not much time really to run your offense, and you know, with the way Pittsburgh plays, you have to score quickly.
Gibbs, they call him the microwave, trying to heat up. Can't hit 3 in a row, and here comes St. John's. It's Kennedy. Picks up the dribble, goes to the other side of the bucket, and he will shoot 2.
And you know, some people at home may not agree with that move right there. I think a great move by Kennedy. Wasn't a wide open look, but you have guys in transition. They're not set up. Even if it's a tough look, push it, get to the teeth of the defense, get close to the rim, put it up on the glass.
Well, as you've talked about, John, St. John's can struggle in the half court looking for shots, and you're always trying to balance a good shot with a quick shot. And when you have your best scorer 5 feet from the bucket, why not attack?
And if you're going to attack and get fouled, you have to knock down your free throws. St. John's struggling tonight. Now 9 for 15. Make that 10 for 16 from the free throw line.
Kennedy now with 10 points, coming off a 20-point game in Wednesday's loss against Marquette. Trayvon Wood all at the point in this matchup of New York City point guards. Wanamaker given some space. Gibbs not given any space. Shot clock down to 10. Wanamaker into the lane. Pull up. Good.
That's a lost art in basketball. That little pull-up floater, mid-range, and Wanamaker making it happen.
Now, he emerged as a key reserve during last year's Big East regular season on that terrific Pittsburgh team that won 31 games and went all the way to their regional finals before losing to Villanova, and he has taken that next step this year as a junior leader in the starting lineup. And as his game has progressed, you see things like that nice mid-range jumper you talk about, John.
Yeah, and he comes right here, a little stop. And some guys pull up for the straight jumper. Some guys use the little floater, which is a little bit easier. But you know, with Dixon being out 8 games and Brown missing the first 11, Wanamaker, Gibbs, they had to step up and really be the leaders on this team. And in this Southport campaign, both guys were thrusted into the fire. And they've done a good job.
Wanamaker's numbers on the year: 12 points per game, 4.5 assists per game, which is in the top 10 in the conference, 6 rebounds per game. And again, a 6'4" junior from Philadelphia who gives you a little bit of everything for Pittsburgh. St. John's down 11. Kennedy pulls his way into the lane and scores. 12 for the junior from Pittsburgh against his hometown team. Three minutes left in regulation. Pittsburgh has led pretty much the entire way. St. John's last lead was 6-4. Pittsburgh went on a run and led by 8 at the intermission, and they have pretty much maintained that lead.
You know what 2:30 in the afternoon feels like, right? Sleepy? Groggy? Dying for a nap? What do? Run for the coffee? Grab a soda? But how long does that last before you're back for more? Try this instead. Take one 5-hour energy, then see what the rest of your day feels like. Sure won't feel like 2:30 anymore. Or 3:30. Or 4:30. 5-hour energy. Hours of energy now, no 2:30 feeling later.
Welcome back to Tech and Talk. I'm Ranjit. This is Chad. Sir.
Hello, Ranjit. I'm stuck in a cell phone contract. Can I get out of it with no penalty?
There is always a penalty. You are now like my uncle's cow, Goldie, tied to a post, milked at regular intervals. Chad, shame him. You should be with Metro PCS. You'll get nationwide 3G coverage plus no contract.
$40 a month, period, for unlimited talk, text, and web. Metro PCS, wireless for all.
Just tell me right now, like first impression, would you marry me?
There's so many different things about me that I do not like.
Let's talk about something fun. How about magic?
Peanuts. I like cashews.
Any site can get you to a first date. But with eHarmony, those dates can be better. You get to choose from people matched with you based on deep compatibility. And that means something more meaningful from the first date onward. So try eHarmony.com today and review all your compatible matches free.
James to drive. Here's James from way out.
Last time, he dropped 47.
Another spectacular performance from LeBron James.
What will King James do next? Monday night, T-Mac leads New York into Cleveland to face LeBron for the final time this season. Knicks, Cavs, Monday at 7. Only on MSG. New York plays here.
This is the worst weather we've seen in quite some time, folks. And I don't see any end in sight. People have been calling in from across the state complaining their basements are flooding. They need the waterproofing solutions from Basement Systems. If you want a dry basement or crawl space that will weather any kind of storm, you need the patented solution from Basement Systems.
Now you can finish your basement with the Total Basement Finishing System.
I'm predicting this storm front's heading your way.
Dial 800-519-5580.
2:22 remaining in regulation. Hardy lines it up but missed. Rebound, Ashton Gibbs. And now Pittsburgh drops back defensively, down 61-52. Here comes the double team by Mason. And the kick basketball with a shot clock at 24. 2:05 remaining in regulation. And the other noon start of the Big East has gone final. There it is, Notre Dame with a huge win for its resume in D.C., knocking off number 13 Georgetown today.
And that really cracks the door open for Notre Dame to try to sneak into the tournament. That's 2 big wins in a row, beating 2 ranked teams. And you have a lot of opportunity when you play in the Big East Conference to improve or kind of get buried. Either way.
Mason over the back foul. We'd like to apologize for our technical difficulties as Norm Roberts' St. John's Red Storm finds itself in a bad spot right now, down 9, under 2 minutes remaining. Mason with the foul. And so Pittsburgh will inbound. Trayvon Woodall, the redshirt freshman from Brooklyn, gets it in. Defensively, there doesn't seem to be the urgency for St. John's right now that they need to have, John.
Yeah, I mean, with a minute and a half to go.
Well, there's the steal. Kennedy knocked it away from behind, trying to cash in at the other end. Off the spin move, no. McGee for Pittsburgh doing yeoman's work on the defensive glass. Does a nice job to hustle back and make sure it was one and done for the Johnnies.
And that's just been a microcosm right there of St. John's this season. You know, has the little spin move, the layup just doesn't go down. Balls just don't, you know, fall their way when it matters. You go back to the last game and the heartbreaking loss. The ball bounces to Jimmy Butler from Marquette, and he makes the fadeaway jump shot.
As for McGee, even though he missed that free throw, nice stat line for him. 6 points, 10 rebounds. That was the first turnover for St. John's this half, only 4 in the first half. So we talked about the fact that Pittsburgh lost its last game, John, having turned the ball over 4 times. St. John's on the short end here with only 5 turnovers.
And I don't think this game has really come down to turnovers. It's just St. John's inability to score the basketball.
Today's Big East game has been brought to you by Oppenheimer Funds, the right way to invest. Champion, it's how you play. And by Papa John's. Score Papa John's Nothing But Net Special. All large pizzas, just $10. In the shadow of the Empire State Building, St. John's down 9 in its final regular season home game here at Madison Square Garden. 16th ranked Pittsburgh took the lead early and has led throughout. The Panthers were up 8 at the intermission, and St. John's really has not been able to make a push. They did draw to within 5 early in the second half, but beyond that, as you say, John, putting together consecutive baskets and trying to get a run just has not been easy for St. John's this year or here today.
And it's going to be tough when you play against the Pittsburgh Panthers. Pitt, coming off the loss to Notre Dame, they really had what Jamie Dixon calls boot camp practice. And, you know, you knew that they were going to come in here today and be a little more focused and on a mission. And they've really dominated St. John's for most of this game. St. John's really hasn't been able to break into this lead or even nibble at it. It's just, it's just been tough. Pittsburgh has kept them at arm's length all game.
Hardy got tied up on the way up by Wanamaker, but fought his way through to get the bucket. And a timeout called by St. John's.
St. John's calls the 30-second timeout. It's St. John's final timeout.
Well, with Georgetown having lost to Notre Dame today, the Big East Conference standings and that race for fourth place has changed just a bit. The Hoyas take a big hit in their bid to try and get a double bye in the Big East Championship.
And you need that double bye. Georgetown, not a deep team. They don't play a lot of guys. You talk about in the Big East tournament when you're playing, back to back possibly.
Yep.
And you're trying to get ready for that NCAA tournament. It can be tough.
Meanwhile, Pittsburgh eyeing what would be its 11th conference win of the season. Jamie Dixon and his club from here takes on Providence and Rutgers, and as you talked about, 2 very winnable games for Pitt. And we talked about this being a bounce-back game after having dropped their last game. And you'd think Pittsburgh has a very good chance of having 3 straight wins going into the postseason.
When you look at Providence and Rutgers, you have to say that's a favorable schedule for Pittsburgh going down the stretch, and puts them in a really good position. They only have to really win one more game to solidify one of those top 4 spots. So they're going to be in a good position. I think this is one of Coach Dixon's best coaching performances in his career, because this is not a team that is supremely talented. When you lose DeJuan Blair and Levance Fields and Sam Young, who's at the ball game today, and Tyrell Biggs, they lost a lot of firepower, man.
Pittsburgh certainly will be dangerous in the Big East tournament. You got to figure Syracuse and Villanova will be your co-favorites going in. Who do you think is the favorite going into that tournament, John?
Well, right now I have to say Syracuse, because of the way that they've been playing. That zone has just been engulfing teams all year. It's very difficult when you play Syracuse, because you fall into that jump shooting type of game, and that's what they want you to do. They have just been phenomenal with the length, but Villanova is tough. I would have to say Syracuse is the favorite, but wouldn't surprise me if they don't win because the Big East tournament, because the Big East has just been that type of conference all year. Any team from 1 through 6 or 7 can win it.
Now we've got that huge matchup tonight at the Carrier Dome, 9 o'clock Eastern time on ESPN between Villanova and Syracuse. Going in, the Orange ranked 4th, the Wildcats ranked 8th, and Syracuse 13-2, Villanova 12-3. So the winner of tonight's game will be able to claim first place, even though a Villanova win will leave them tied in the conference standings. The Wildcats would own the head-to-head, and with 34,616 expected inside the Carrier Dome, that would be a huge victory for the Wildcats. On-campus record attendance expected tonight in Central New York. Well, Jamie Dixon's club has done it offensively without Ashton Gibbs for the most part. He came in averaging 16 points per game, didn't score a single point until the second half. But other players have stepped up, and the defense has been there.
And that's the type of team that Pittsburgh is. They're not a one-man show. They have a lot of weapons. And they beat you as a team. They beat you on the defensive end. They play hard. They're all a unit. You're not going to see one guy dominating the scoring. And that's the way Jamie Dixon has done it for the time he's been here.
Well, 9 different Panthers have scored. That's a goaltend against Paris Horns to count the basket for Jermaine Dixon. He's now got 4 points. Pittsburgh has 9 players in the scoring column, only 2 in double digits. Robinson and Brown both with 13 points, as Pittsburgh leads by 10.
How about Paris Horn playing to the end, going up to get that layup by Dixon.
Booth again unable to finish, muscles it back and lays it in. Whistle and a foul before the inbound. Dwight Hardy whistled for the personal. And so they walk to the other end for Pittsburgh free throws. Looks like it's Ashton Gibbs who will toe the line. Now, Gibbs was the Big East Conference Player of the Week back on January 4th after keying wins over DePaul and then that big win over then 5th ranked Syracuse. Again, Pittsburgh, the only team in the country that has on its resume 3 wins this season against teams that at the time were ranked in the top 5 in the country. They beat Syracuse, they beat West Virginia, and they beat Villanova. So you talk about this being a dangerous team in the Big East tournament. No question about it, especially if they're able to earn that double bye, winning 3 games in 3 days against top flight competition. Certainly well within reach for Pitt.
And I think also in the NCAA tournament, you know, you don't want to run up against a team like Pitt that can really turn the game into just an ugly mess. You know, with the way they play, the way they grind out ball games.
And while, as we talked about, Pittsburgh lost a lot to graduation last year, the core of this Pittsburgh team was part of that team that went all the way to the regional finals a year ago for Jamie Dixon, won 31 ball games, so they are tournament tested and know what it takes to get it done in March.
And in the NCAA tournament, it's about experience. It's about have you been there before? And these guys, although a lot of them weren't major contributors, they were part of that success, and they have some experience under their belt.
.3 seconds remaining on the game clock here at Madison Square Garden. A foul Pittsburgh did not want to give up. You don't want to stop the clock, but Malik Booth will head to the free throw line. St. John's is on its way to a 2nd straight loss after having won 3 of 4 before that for Norm Roberts. The questions here in New York City continue about his future. This is the 6th year as head coach at St. John's, and while he has done a great job of cleaning up the program that was a mess when he took over, the bottom line is you've got to win more often. And for the Big East and for St. John's, 5 wins in Big East play, not getting it done. And then when you go to Syracuse on Tuesday, that's a tough one to win. And then they'll wrap up the regular season at DePaul.
Well, this is a tough conference, not only to play in, but also to coach in. Especially when you can get ambushed every night, no matter who you play. No pushovers. Anybody can upset you. Very difficult conference to really battle in and night out.
Well, it's as unforgiving as any league in the country. I mean, they're stretched back in late January. They lost at number 21 Connecticut. Next time out, lost to number 4 Villanova. Next time out, lost at number 17 Pittsburgh. 2 games later, lost to West Virginia, ranked 6th in the country. So 5 straight losses, 4 of them to teams ranked in the top 20.
There's nowhere to run and hide in this conference. Everything is right out in the open, and you got to take on the bully every night.
The other part of the equation is that St. John's has had the opportunity to win some of those conference games, but they have blown leads in the second half 6 times against Big East opponents and lost those games. So you take, say, even hold on to 3 of those. What a difference that makes in the standings.
Well, that's the difference between good teams in this league and teams that are mediocre. The ability to finish down the stretch. And that's what basketball is in the Big East Conference. You know, a lot of teams hang around, but in those last 5 or 6 minutes, can you execute? Can you get the stops? Can you get the big rebounds? Who can hit the big shot? That is the difference in this league.
St. John's has not been to the NCAA tournament in a decade. Last time they won the Big East regular season championship was 1992. And that drought will continue this year, short of a miracle here at the Garden at the Big East Championship. Booth gets the roll. Pittsburgh gets the inbound. Wanamaker decides not to attack the basket. In a show of sportsmanship, dribbles it out. And Pittsburgh with a bounce-back win. Lost on Wednesday at Notre Dame, Coach Dixon said we needed to come back and play much better today, and that indeed they did. Pittsburgh wins 71-64. The Panthers improved to 22-7 overall, 11-5 in Big East play. For John Celestan and our entire crew, I'm Doug Sherman. For more information, log on to ESPNplus.com. The proceeding has been an exclusive presentation of ESPN Regional Television, the leader in collegiate sports. So long from New York City.